The spray paint was still wet when I walked in. Red, sloppy letters scrawled across my living room wall like a personal insult from someone I'd once called family. Thanks for the free ride, sucker. The words pulsed like an open wound. My name is Naomi. And from wherever you're watching this, stay with me. Have you ever opened your home in love, only to have that love stomped across your floors in muddy shoes and lies? Because that's exactly what happened to me. And the part that hurt most? I didn't just invite betrayal in. I tucked it into a warm bed and fed it dinner. 3 months earlier, I got the call from my older sister. Shaking. Apologetic. Slurring just enough for me to know she'd relapsed again. Naomi, please. Just until I get clean. A few weeks. He's a good kid. He just needs a place. I didn't hesitate. I didn't ask for money. I didn't lay out conditions. I said, of course, and rearranged my entire life to give her 17-year-old son, Rico, a safe place to land. I bought extra groceries. Set up the guest room. I even used my contacts to get him a part-time job at my friend's auto shop. He smiled a lot those first few weeks. Called me Aunt N. Helped bring in groceries. Said thanks when I cooked. I genuinely believed he was trying. But slowly, things shifted. The smiles stopped. He started staying out late. Got cagey with his phone. Began locking his door, even though he didn't pay a dime in rent. I chalked it up to trauma. Confusion. Teenage ego. But I didn't stop giving. I kept refilling the fridge. Kept driving him to work. Kept defending him when my friends said, "You sure this is safe?" I didn't want to believe the worst. Until I came home from work one Friday evening and everything was gone.
TV? Gone. Laptop? Gone.
My mother's necklace?
Gone.
Even the emergency cash I kept in the laundry drawer? Gone. And on the wall, above the cracked cabinet door, he likely kicked it on his way out? That message. Thanks for the free ride, sucker. That night, I sat on the floor of my empty apartment and laughed, not because it was funny, but because if I didn't laugh, I was going to scream. I didn't file a police report.
Not yet.
I did something else. I logged into the school portal I helped him register for. The same one he pretended to log homework into. I saw that he was still listed as a student. Still attending classes. That meant he was still in the city. And that meant I had a window. The next morning, I packed a folder.
Documents.
Screenshots. Messages. Security cam footage from the lobby. And one thing he never saw coming. A signed letter from his probation officer, who also happened to be my friend's husband, someone I'd looped in months ago, just in case Rico slipped again. By noon, I was walking through the front gates of his school. I wasn't yelling. I wasn't crying. I was prepared. Because if Rico thought he was just going to vanish with my trust, my money, and my peace, he was about to learn something that morning in homeroom. Aunt N doesn't break. She builds receipts. I walked into the school like I belonged there. Blazer. Folder in hand. Calm face. The front desk receptionist looked up and smiled. "Can I help you?" "I'm here for Rico Jennings," I said smoothly. "His aunt. It's urgent." She blinked, clearly unsure how urgent could look so polite. "I believe he's in third period history."
Perfect.
"Is Mr. Lerner still teaching it?" "I remember him from orientation." She nodded. "I'll send someone to pull him." "Actually," I said gently, sliding a folded paper across the counter, "this is a formal document. I'd like to present it with school administration present. And, if possible, I'd prefer to handle this discreetly. Quietly." She looked at the header on the letter, the legal stamp, the logo of the Youth Rehabilitation Partnership, and her demeanor shifted. Within 5 minutes, I was escorted to the vice principal's office. They called Rico. He walked in with that slouched gait, confident, bored, that teenage mask of untouchability pasted on his face. Until he saw me. His mouth twitched. "Aunt Naomi? What are you?" "Sit down." I didn't raise my voice. I didn't need to. The folder was already open. "This," I said, placing the first document on the table, "is a printout of every item stolen from my apartment. This," I continued, tapping the next page, "is surveillance footage from the hallway. That's you. leaving at 1:43 a.m. with 2 duffel bags, one of which was mine. He paled. And this, I said, holding up the final letter, is a signed notification from your probation officer. Since you're technically under Youth Protection Services while your mother is in rehab, your actions constitute breach of conditional trust. The vice principal's eyes widened. Rico, is this true?
He didn't speak.
I leaned in just a little. I took you in like family. You called me Aunt N. I gave you shelter, food, a job, clothes, safety. You didn't just rob my apartment. You robbed the one person who would have fought for you if you asked for anything. I didn't mean, he mumbled. You meant every word. I cut in. You spray-painted it on my wall. That was the truest sentence you've written in months. The school couldn't keep him there, but they gave me permission to place a formal behavioral violation on record. Something that would follow him if he tried to transfer schools under a different guardian name. Something real, not just gossip or suspicion. Before I left, I stood and faced him directly. You didn't just burn a bridge, Rico. You blew up a home. I looked at the vice principal. If any of your other students ever need a place to stay, really stay, send them to me. But not him. Not again. And I walked out. That night, my apartment was still half empty. But I lit a candle, cleaned the wall, tossed the broken cabinet. And then I opened a new folder on my laptop. Free ride fallout, ongoing. Because Rico wasn't the first person to take advantage of me, but he would be the last to walk away without consequence. 2 days later, my friend at the auto shop texted me. Guess who tried to get back on the schedule today? I replied with a single line. Let him know the ride's over. And the road ahead just got a lot steeper. The call came at midnight. Not a text, not a voicemail, a full-on call, ringing into the darkness like guilt finally found a phone. I almost didn't pick up, but when I saw her name,
I did.
Naomi, it's me. My sister's voice sounded like gravel, raw, crumbling, trying to hold itself together. I heard about Rico. He told me what happened. I waited. No interruptions. Let her tell it how she wanted. He said it got out of hand, that he just panicked, that he was scared. Scared? He wasn't scared when he wiped me clean and tagged the wall like a joke. But I didn't say that. Not yet. He didn't just panic, I said slowly. He planned. There were withdrawals from my emergency fund 2 days before. He forged my signature at the pawn shop. That's not panic. That's premeditated betrayal. She sniffled. He's a kid, Naomi. He's been through so much. There it was. The excuse machine. The family defense system we all knew by heart. So have I snapped. I've worked 3 jobs. Paid for mom's care. Helped you through detox twice. And not once, did I spray paint my pain onto someone's wall. Silence. You're right, she said finally. I didn't think you'd give up on him. I didn't, I whispered. He gave up on me. And then I said what I had rehearsed in my head 100 times. You always come to me when you're sinking. And I always throw the rope. But what happens when I go under next time? Who's going to pull me up? More silence.
Then,
I'm sorry. It was the first time she'd ever said it and meant it. But apologies can't repair holes when the foundation is gone. I hope he turns things around, I said. I really do. But not under my roof. Not under my name. I understand, she murmured. I just wanted you to know I'm getting clean again. I'm trying. Then try harder than he did. And I hung up. The next morning, I called the auto shop. Hey, Paul. Let's open up that intern spot again, not for Rico. For someone who's ready. He laughed. I was hoping you'd say that. I've got a young woman who's aging out of the system. Quiet, serious. No drama. Perfect, I said. Her name was Amara. 17. No parents. 2 years in group homes. No job history, but eyes like she'd seen too much and was still standing. I met her the next day. She shook my hand like it mattered. Listened like it was survival. By week 2, she was cleaning up early and staying late. Why are you helping me? She asked one day. Because someone once helped me, I said. And I didn't steal their life out from under them. She nodded, understood immediately. Weeks passed. The house slowly filled again, not with things but with trust. Amara moved in, paid partial rent,
Cooked dinner sometimes.
watched movies with me in silence. Nothing forced, nothing fake. She once said, "You're the first person who hasn't asked me what I did wrong, just what I want to do next." That's when I knew. Rico's betrayal didn't make me bitter. It made me careful. And now, I was choosing who got my warmth, my help, my home. And this time, I was choosing right. 3 weeks after Rico vanished from my life, I received a text that nearly made me drop my coffee. "We found some of your stuff. It's at Gold Star Pawn, 6th and Ridge." No name, just the message. I didn't hesitate. By noon, I was standing under a flickering neon sign, staring through thick glass at a case filled with my memories. My grandmother's ring, the engraved silver watch my late uncle gave me after college, a camera I bought with my first freelance paycheck, and, on the wall behind the counter, my laptop. I approached calmly. I'd like to verify an item was sold under false pretenses. The clerk looked up, annoyed. "We don't do returns without receipts." I smiled and slid the paperwork across the glass.
Receipts.
Screenshots. Police ID number. The incident report I'd filed after the school meeting. He scanned it, then looked up with a twitch in his eye.
Ah.
"That one." "Yes," I said. "That one." Turned out, Rico used a fake ID. Sloppy laminate job. Said his aunt was moving and let him take whatever. The shop had logged everything: serial numbers, date stamps, surveillance footage. I requested copies. They hesitated until I brought out the final page, a lawyer's letter of intent to pursue legal action under the Stolen Property Act. The manager caved. "You didn't hear it from me," he muttered, sliding over the log sheet. "But he's been in and out of here. Different locations. Same tricks." I took everything. Not just the sheet, the pattern. He was building a reputation. Not just for theft, for targeting kindness. That night, I sat with Amara, organizing what I now called the wall. Photos. Timestamps. Statements. A full crime board, only without the murder, just a bleeding heart and missing heirlooms. She looked at it quietly. "You're gonna take him down, aren't you?" "Not for revenge," I said. "For record. Because the next time he charmed his way into someone's house, they deserved to know the blueprint he used." Amara stared at the photos for a while. "You could have just moved on. Forgotten it." "I don't move on," I said. "I move through." 3 days later, I called a friend, Sasha, a producer at a local podcast. Her show focused on community issues: justice, rehabilitation, youth crime. I pitched her an episode. What happens when second chances get stolen? She bit immediately. We recorded that Friday. I didn't say Rico's name, but I told the story. About opening my door. About watching trust turn into empty drawers. About the spray-painted goodbye that wasn't a mistake, it was a message. And I ended with this. Kindness isn't infinite, but it is resilient. You can drain it, but if you build it back with truth, it can be stronger than before. The episode went viral locally. Listeners sent messages. Teachers. Guardians. Even a foster parent who said, "Thank you." I almost gave up. Now I know I'm not alone. Then, quietly, my inbox buzzed with a name I hadn't heard in weeks. Rico. Aunt N. I saw the podcast. I know it's about me. I'm sorry. I didn't know how far I went until I heard you talk about it like that. I know you won't trust me again. I just needed you to know. I was listening. I didn't respond. Not out of spite, but because apologies should echo in the silence they created. And for once, I was finally at peace with that. A week after Rico's message, I still hadn't replied. Not because I was angry, but because I needed to be sure he meant it. Words are easy when you're exposed. And Rico had been exposed to the school, the streets, the system, and now the internet. But change? That takes more than guilt. So I waited. Until one day, Sasha, the podcast producer, called me with a strange tone in her voice. "You're not gonna believe who showed up at the community center after we aired your episode." "Who?" "Rico." I sat up. What did he want? He asked if we had a list of local service projects. Said he didn't want to take any more. He wanted to give something back. I didn't speak. Naomi, she said gently, I think he's scared. Not because you're angry, but because you moved on without him. That same day, Amara got accepted into a local college prep program. She came home glowing, gripping the letter like a miracle. They're giving me a partial scholarship, she said. All I have to do is keep working and show up. I hugged her.
Fierce. Proud.
And as I held her, a thought surfaced, something radical, dangerous, honest. Could there still be a bridge for Rico, too? Not into my life, not into my home, but into something better than where he was headed. The next morning, I drafted a message.
Short.
Precise. Conditional. Rico, if you're serious about changing, meet me tomorrow at 10 a.m. Corner of 12th and Main. Don't bring excuses. Bring your hands. We're painting. He replied within seconds. I'll be there. It was the wall behind a youth shelter, the same one I once volunteered at when I was younger. They needed it painted, freshened, made whole again. A visual metaphor?
Sure.
But more importantly, it was work. Rico showed up in baggy jeans, worn sneakers, and a face that had aged 5 years in the span of 5 months. He didn't hug me, didn't look me in the eye, just nodded and picked up a brush. We painted in silence for an hour. At one point, he said, I pawned your camera.
I'm sorry.
I know you probably used that for work. I nodded, still brushing long strokes of white over old graffiti. I did. It was mine. More silence. Do you hate me? I stopped. Turned to face him.
No.
But I don't owe you anything anymore. Not love. Not warmth. Not trust. He swallowed. I know. Good, I said. Because anything you get now, it's not a gift. It's earned. We painted until sunset. By the end of the day, his shirt was stained. His hands blistered. His silence softer. Same time next week, he asked. I raised an eyebrow. You offering? Yeah, he said, without looking up. I think I need to finish this one. The shelter wall was only one project. But for Rico, it was a start. I didn't let him back into my house. But I let him into accountability. Because sometimes the only way to rebuild someone who tore you down is to hand them a brush and say, you broke it. Now fix it. That night, Amara asked me, are you sure you trust him? I shook my head. I don't. But I trust the version of me who knows how to draw the line. And for the first time in a long time, I slept without locking the past in a box. I just let it stand. Painted over. Visible underneath, but no longer bleeding. Week 3 of painting, and the wall was almost done. What started as layers of graffiti and grime was now a smooth stretch of soft blue. Fresh, clean, unrecognizable. Like it had never been vandalized at all. Funny how healing can look like starting from scratch. Rico showed up early that day. Still quiet. Still distant. But there was something different about the way he held the paint can, steadier. Focused. I applied for a delivery job, he said, without being asked. Bike courier. Honest work. No lockpicks. No spray cans. I glanced over. Background checks.
Yeah.
I told them about my record. They said they'd still consider me if I could get a character reference. From who? I asked, already knowing the answer. He looked down. You. I kept painting. Why me? Because I stole from you. And you're still standing next to me. I paused. Rested the brush against the wall. That's not forgiveness, Rico. That's distance. There's a difference. He nodded. Didn't argue. I'm not asking you to forget. I want a shot. Later that afternoon, as we were packing up, a man from the shelter came out with a stack of disposable bowls and said, soup's hot. You both hungry? Rico nodded, but waited until I took mine first. That was new. He sat beside me on the curb as we ate, hands still covered in flecks of blue. You know, he said, the night I left your apartment, I waited for you to chase me. Why would I? I asked. Because that's what Mom always did. Every time I messed up, she came crying, begging me to come home. I thought you would too. I stared into my bowl. I don't beg for what hurts me. He swallowed hard. Didn't speak after that. But he didn't get up either. That night, back at home, Amara was going over scholarship forms at the kitchen table. She was muttering to herself, frustrated. Why do they need 3 essays? I already proved myself. Because sometimes, I said, sliding a cup of tea beside her, they want to know if you'll fight for your future, even when it's annoying. She smirked, rolled her eyes. Do you think he'll make it? Rico? I asked. She nodded. I leaned back in my chair, thinking carefully before answering. I think people either rebuild or repeat. It's a choice. Every single day. And you still think he deserves a chance? Not deserves, I said. He needs one. But what he does with it, that's not on me anymore. The next morning, I wrote the character reference. It wasn't glowing. It wasn't poetic. It was honest. Rico Jennings betrayed my trust in the most painful way. He broke into my life, took what wasn't his, and walked away without a second glance. But he also came back, uninvited, and started painting the walls he once would have defaced. I don't know who he'll be in a year, but I know who he's trying to be now. And sometimes, that's the only place real change starts. I signed it.
Sent it.
Then I closed the document and didn't think twice. 2 days later, Rico sent a photo. It was a selfie, him on a bike, backpack slung tight, a small delivery tag pinned to his shirt. The caption? Job starts Monday. I'm paying back every cent. One ride at a time. I didn't reply. Not because I didn't care, but because some debts aren't paid in words. They're paid in who you become. It had been nearly 2 months since the break-in. 2 months since the paint. Since the silence. Since Rico stopped being a name that made my stomach twist.
Now, he was just a name in my phone.
A contact labeled Rico in progress. Amara was the one who changed it. Because he's not the thief anymore, she said. He's the draft version. Not final, but trying. She wasn't wrong. That week, Rico delivered soup to the shelter 3 nights in a row, not because anyone asked, but because they looked tired. He stayed after to clean up. Told me he was trying to build a ledger, one with more deposits than withdrawals. I stole. So now I pay. Not just money. Effort. Respect. He didn't always say the right thing. He still flinched when thanked. Still struggled to hold eye contact. But little by little he was showing up. On a rainy Tuesday afternoon, I came home to find a box on my doorstep. No address label. Just my name in thick black marker. Naomi. I brought it inside carefully. Inside were 8 items. My mother's ring. The camera slightly dented but intact. The silver watch. My missing cross necklace. A torn receipt from the pawn shop. 2 envelopes. And a folded hoodie I hadn't even noticed was missing, one that once belonged to my late uncle. I sank to the floor. One envelope had a sticky note. Start here. I opened it. Inside was $520 in cash and a list. Partial repayments. $80 from Friday deliveries. $100 from Sunday shifts. $40 from tips. $300 from selling my speakers. The ones I bragged about stealing, I didn't earn those. At the bottom, balance remaining, $2,435. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm building receipts. Every cent will be named. Every lie will be traced. I owe you more than money, but I'm starting with that. The second envelope. A letter. Handwritten. Sloppy. Spelled wrong in parts. But real. Aunt N. I wrote this 5 times. The first one begged. The second one blamed you. The third one blamed my mom. The fourth one made excuses. This one just tells the truth. You were the first person to help me without strings. And I tied you up anyway. I thought you'd chase me. I thought you'd break. Instead, you built. You built a wall. A life. A boundary. And somehow, you let me build beside you. Not back into your home, but into myself. You said forgiveness isn't free. So I won't ask for it. I'll just keep paying. Sincerely, Rico. P.S. I got accepted to a re-entry program. They're helping me apply for my GED. First class starts next month. I told them my reference is the woman who never came looking for me because she was too busy finding herself. I didn't cry. I just sat there in the doorway for a long time, box open, letter in hand. The rain still tapping against the windows like the past asking for entry. I didn't let the past in, but I did let hope sit beside me. Not because Rico deserved it, but because he'd earned it. Later that night, Amara looked through the box and said, "You're not going to put that stuff back, are you?" "No," I said. "I'm going to put it where it always belonged, which is in a story, not in my heart. Because forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It means closing the ledger, page by page, debt by debt, choice by choice." 3 months after Rico emptied my home and tagged my wall with betrayal, I stood on the steps of the youth center for something I never thought I'd witness. His GED ceremony. He wore a second-hand blazer over a wrinkled button-down. His tie was crooked. His shoes didn't match. But his hands?
Steady.
His eyes?
Clear.
And his posture? Taller than I'd ever seen. He didn't know I was coming. Amara had convinced me the night before. You don't have to hug him.
Or speak.
Just show up. Sometimes, showing up is the full sentence.
So I did.
I slipped into the back row, behind rows of folding chairs and laminated name tags. The director read his name second to last. Rico Jennings, youth reentry graduate, delivery worker, and volunteer mentor. Volunteer mentor? I blinked. He walked up to collect his certificate. Didn't smile, just nodded. But when he turned back toward the crowd, his eyes scanned. And found me. He froze. Not with shame. With understanding. I nodded. One simple nod. And he looked like the air finally returned to his lungs. After the ceremony, he found me by the vending machine. He didn't say much.
Didn't try to hug me.
Just reached into his messenger bag and pulled out a notebook. "What's this?" I asked. "Every ride I've made. Every dollar I've earned. Every cent I've put back." He opened it. Pages upon pages of tiny handwriting.
Dates.
Deliveries.
Tips.
Mileage. Deposits. And at the bottom of the last page, debt to Aunt Naomi, $0. Trust in progress. I didn't say anything for a long time. Then I whispered, "I forgive you." His eyes brimmed. "Why now?" "Because you did what you never did when you lived with me. You stayed. You didn't run. You showed up. That's the rent I needed all along." He handed me one last item, a spray paint cap. The same kind he used that night. It was painted gold. "I'm not erasing what I did," he said. "I'm just not letting it define the wall anymore." That weekend, I started repainting the guest room. Not for Rico. For Amara. She'd gotten into college, real college. Full ride. I was turning the room into her study. And for the first time, it didn't feel like replacing one kid with another. It felt like healing, expanding, not swapping. People think love is a soft thing. It's not. Love is measured. It has boundaries. And sometimes, the most loving thing you can do is walk away. But sometimes, the most powerful thing is walking back. 3 months became 6. Rico kept delivering. Amara moved into her dorm. And I started writing again. Really writing. My next book? Every Ride Forward. It wasn't about betrayal. It was about what comes after. About how some people build restitution 1 mile at a time. About how even stolen things can return, if not as objects, then as growth. I closed the book with one final line. He didn't pay me back with cash. He paid me back with every ride he didn't run away from. And sometimes, redemption is just that, not erasing the past, but riding forward anyway. Because in the end, he wasn't a thief. He was a boy who broke something and stayed long enough to build it back.